So it's all for play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Hello, Aston Villa fans, and it's third time lucky me trying to get out this Loic Bade podcast or this Loic Bade video, but thank you for persevering with me. First two technical issues, so hopefully this third one is going to be the one that hits home. Aston Villa have concrete interest in Loic Bade, according to Fabrizio Romano. It's a player that I would be very happy for us to be interested in, and we're going to take a little look at him now. So Loic Bade is a player who plays for Sevilla. He's a centre half. Plays mostly as a right centre half on that right hand side. He's had a very varied upcoming. Came through the FC Paris Academy in France, and then went on to Le Havre, made his debut for Le Havre's second team, then progressing onto his first team. Got a big move then to, well, a big move relative to where he was, to Lens, moved on from Lens to Rennes, and then at Rennes he has a couple of loan séjours, let's just say. One of them very, very fruitful, and one of them not so fruitful. And I'm going to talk about the not so fruitful one first, because he did spend some time in the Premier League already, Loic Bade. He was signed by Nottingham Forest in September of 2022 and never actually played for Nottingham Forest. His loan then was terminated, but it seems due to mutual agreement between himself and the club in January, and then he was reloaned out to Sevilla, where he went on to win the Europa League with Sevilla that year under Mendilibar against Fiorentina, I think it was. And he's then made his permanent transfer to Sevilla after that, and he's been with Sevilla since, and Aston Villa have now come knocking. I want to go back a small bit though and explain one or two little things about the Nottingham Forest transfer. At the time he was transferred to Nottingham Forest, that was, over those two transfer windows, Nottingham Forest had brought in 30 players, including Loic Bade. They weren't exactly the most functional club at the time. There was a lot of bickering going on from Marinakis at the top, and also he had a man in charge called George Sirianos. He was the transfer guru at the time. I think also there was a guy by the name of Andy Scott there. And at the time of signing, Loic Bade was signed by George Sirianos. And Sirianos got the boot. So he was signed on at the start of September. Sirianos gets the boot at the start of October, and is replaced by a man called, let me just bring up his name here again. I keep on forgetting his name. Filippo Giraldi was brought in then, and he only lasted 6 months. And then the Lazarus-like return of George Sirianos happens then in the summer of 2023. So essentially what happened here was, man bought, transfer guru buys Loic Bade for Nottingham Forest in a massive splurge of 30 players over the course of two transfer windows. He gets the sack. Giraldi comes in. He's not pulling the mustard or cutting the mustard. In January, then he gets sent back. Giraldi goes and purchases other players. And it just seemed to be one of these young players. He was 21, 22 years of age, getting caught in the crosshairs, I think, at a club who was trying to go through rapid transition after getting promoted to the Premier League. So a little bit of context on that, because I know some people have spoken about that and have talked about that with regards to him maybe not reaching the heights that he needed to, or not even making an appearance at Nottingham Forest. But let's take a look at what this guy is. So here's Loic Bade, fine cut of a man. Look at him there. He's a big, strong guy. He's not about 6'3". He is 6'3", and he's right-footed. He turns 25 on the 11th of April, and we can see there by his heat map that he very much patrols that central area and out towards the right-hand side, which is something that I think we would love to see. Having Tyrone Mings and Pau Torres coming back in what we would hope about 6 to 7 weeks' time. Having an extra centre-back is paramount. Obviously, there is rumours that Diego Carlos may be on his way out as well. Whether that happens or not, whether that's part of this deal, because it is rumoured that potentially Diego Carlos may even be part of this deal as well. Who knows? And we will wait further information on that. But what I want to do is I want to draw your attention towards Loic Bade's defensive statistics. We'll take a look at him here in comparison to the incumbents already. We've got Carlos, Pau Torres, Ezri Konsa, I've left Tyrone Mings off there for obvious reasons. His sample set is very small over the last year. And what we can see is that like Bade far outweighs them from a statistical point of view in tackles, interceptions, recoveries, and is up there with Ezri Konsa from an aerial point of view, based on where Ezri Konsa was last season. So that's kind of the numbers side of things out of the way. The numbers here we can see he's really, really good tackler. He's really good at winning his tackles. He doesn't just tackle for the sake of it. He's really good at winning his tackles. Really good at recovering the ball. Good in the air as well, and a very, very decent passer. He's been tasked with an awful lot of passes. You can see there, 58.11 passes. Actually puts him in the same realm for pass attempts as Pau Torres would have had per 90 minutes last season. So he's used to a workload. Now, when I've watched him, because I've watched him quite a few times, I watched 4 games of his. One of his games actually I watched was when he was at Rennes, before he made the move to Sevilla. You can see it jumps off the page how strong he is in the tackle. There's a reason why Liverpool were sniffing around at this guy, potentially to pair him up with Virgil van Dijk, maybe even potentially to be the heir apparent to Virgil van Dijk. Obviously, not the exact type of player. He has had a few injuries over the last 2 years or so, or 18 months, which has curtailed some of his play. But I'm not quite sure that they're obviously I'm no medical doctor or anything like that, but I'm not quite sure that they're an issue for me, looking at the types of injuries that he's had. He's a big player. He's a big strapping French centre half in the mold of William Saliba or Wesley Fofana. He's got a very athletic guy. This guy's super athletic. He will get around the field. He's very pacey. He's strong in the tackle. He can tackle standing up. He can tackle going to ground. And when he tackles, he wins tackles, if that makes sense. I know that sounds a bit silly, but he doesn't commit an awful lot of fouls anymore. Now, I did mention that I watched him at Rennes. I felt that he was a small little bit rash at Rennes, and he would pile into tackles, and his discipline was slightly poor. I have marked it as a weakness because coming into the Premier League when you're going to want to front up with players and stuff like that, maybe this rears its head again. I don't know. It's clutching at straws. But we will see, I suppose, in time to come. I really, really like him. I like his ability to be able to manipulate the ball, to be able to pass the ball. He's high workload with regards to the amount of passes he's received. He's good at retaining possession from the centre half position, which we know Unai Emery likes. One of the areas that I'm a small bit, I'm not going to say concerned, but one of the areas that popped off to me was in La Liga when there was a massive high press in him. He would try and use his athleticism to get out of that press, if that makes sense. And you'd see him twitching, jinking, and ducking around the place, trying to carry the ball out of that press. I don't know, would he be able to get away with that in the Premier League? I don't know, would Unai Emery want him to do that in the Premier League? And as we see with a lot of our players, we tend to go back to the goalkeeper. We've no problem playing it across our own end line if we need to, but showing that composure and not trying to out-athletic or out-athlete the players that are coming against you, I think is going to be important for him. I don't see any reason as to why he can't change his way of play. What he actually is good at doing is more difficult than what Unai Emery will most likely task him with doing, which would be recycling the ball and being available for it again, and going back to his goalkeeper. And if you need to play it around the 6-yard box, we will. He absolutely can do that. He's shown that he can do that. But it's just, as I say, I've seen some instances whereby he's tried to use his athleticism, get out of those presses. And while it may be a brilliant weapon, because if you break that high press, you're away to the races. You can really start to counterattack. But I'm just not sure I want my centre halves to be doing that every time with the ball. And I see this guy do it more often than not. It's not exactly a negative trait. I just want to see how it would translate into the Premier League. So I would advise everybody go and watch him. He's a teak tough defender. He's very good at as I say at the natural defensive ability pieces that you would want in your centre halves. So just taking a look at his strengths are his pace, as I said, the pure defensive ability, and his comfortability in the passing game. Weaknesses are, as I mentioned previously, a slight concern over his recent injury history and he does have some discipline issues. He did have some discipline issues as a younger player, not from yellow cards, red cards, or anything like that, but he would pile into tackles and break out of that defensive line and to almost like a rugby player almost at times. But he has seemed to curb that at Sevilla under the various managers that they've had there since as well. So with regards to his defensive ability, I want you to take into account defensive and passing comfort here. I have given these a La Liga tax, which I call a La Liga tax myself. So defensive ability, he's a really, really good defender. I've marked him down probably about 10 points here. I would have given him an 85% or 85 defensive ability here if he displayed this in the Premier League week in, week out. Just at La Liga, you know, we've seen La Liga defenders come and not have that same toughness that they would have had when they joined the Premier League. I suppose the incumbent Diego Carlos would be one of those. But this guy can really defend. He is a better defender than Diego Carlos was when Diego Carlos was coming to join Aston Villa. His passing comfort is, I see no problem with it. He's able to recycle that ball, no problem. System fit, absolutely a system fit. Definitely somebody that we could do with having in our squad. And we'll be able to fit into our squad as well with his athleticism. Very much so a nice compliment if Ezri Konsa was to go to right back at any stage. If we were to play 3 at the back, I think he would be a nice compliment to that. And when Pau Torres comes in, obviously having 2 right-footed and 2 left-footed, some people enjoy that type of thing. I think this guy is just a really, really good defender and gives you lots of options. And the transfer possibility, I had done this up about 2 days ago. I had it at a 70% because it just makes too much sense based on the fact that Monchi was at Sevilla at the weekend, watching Sevilla and Valencia. He knows Sevilla inside out. He obviously has keys to the club, and so does Unai Emery. I'm sure there's good blood there, albeit that we did try and do some deals with them last summer, and they didn't come to fruition. But there is some good. You would imagine that there would be some good lines of communication there between the two clubs, and the transfer possibility here, you would imagine, if we can agree on the financials, would be pretty high. So that's just a real quick one on Loic Bade. I hope the audio works on this. I hope that the video is all good and isn't all scrambled. I want to let you guys into a little secret. Previously in the Oscar Menenguez podcast I did, I utilized some footage from La Liga, some footage I paid for. And La Liga actually had a request in for me to take that down. I did take down some of it, but then there was a further request there was some further requests into I have had some requests to remove some other content as well, I think, from La Liga, which I have done, but it seems, I don't know whether there's some sort of restriction on my YouTube account, so hopefully that isn't the case. But anyway, we will be back with more podcasts as soon as anything more on this breaks. I hope that this comes out okay, and I hope that you can hear it and that you can enjoy this. But we should be excited about Loic Bade. He's a nice progressive player and somebody I would like to see at Aston Villa. So we will be back as soon as we know any more on this. In the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy, and all that's left to say is up the Villa.